Good to have you back. Today, I've got some disturbing true Reddit confession threads that honestly creeped me out. Subscribe for more, and let's get started. My smart lock has been logging door unlocks at 3:14 a.m. for the past 2 weeks, and I live alone, 27-year-old female. This one came out of r/let's not meet, posted 3 days ago by a user called Locked Out Logic, and it opens exactly the way these stories always do. Someone finally feeling safe in their own space for the first time. So I, 27-year-old female, bought my first condo about 6 months ago. Lived alone my whole adult life, but this was the first place that was actually mine. I installed a smart lock on the front door and a Ring doorbell camera the week I moved in. Peace of mind, you know? My morning routine is pretty simple. Coffee, check my phone, scroll through whatever. Last Tuesday, I opened my smart lock app for no real reason and noticed something in the activity log. Door unlock, 3:14 a.m. I scrolled down. Another one the night before, 3:14 a.m. The night before that, same thing. I kept scrolling. 14 consecutive nights, every single one logged at exactly 3:14 a.m. I was asleep for all of them. Door always locked when I woke up. Nothing moved, nothing missing. I called the lock company. They confirmed every unlock was triggered by a valid access code, not mine. So I called my property manager and he pulled up the handover records. The code belonged to the previous owner. He went dead quiet. Then he told me that code was supposed to have been wiped during the title transfer. And then he told me the previous owner, a man named Gerald Maddox, died 8 months before I moved in. Someone has been using a dead man's code to get into my home while I sleep, every night for 2 weeks straight. And when I went to check my Ring footage for those timestamps, the clips are just gone. Not corrupted, not glitched. Deleted. 14 nights in a row. Same exact timestamp. A dead man's access code opening her front door, and not a single frame of camera footage left to prove any of it happened. The thing about this story is, you think you already know where it's headed. You don't. She started pulling at threads after this, and what came next made the lock situation feel like the easy part. So now OP knows what's been happening. 14 nights. A dead man's credentials. And instead of falling apart, she goes into full lockdown mode. First thing I did was change the lock code and factory reset the smart lock. Then I checked the Ring footage. The clips from 3:14 a.m. on all 14 nights. They weren't corrupted or glitchy. They were just gone. Absent from the timeline like someone surgically removed each one. I called Ring support. 40 minutes on hold, and they tell me the clips were deleted from a logged-in session on my account. They couldn't trace the device. So whoever's been walking into my home also has access to my cameras. They watch themselves come in and then delete the proof. I changed every password, set up 2FA on everything. That night, I slept with a knife on my nightstand and a chair jammed under my bedroom door handle. I just lay there, thinking about how many times someone stood over me while I was unconscious, and I never once woke up. Called the police the next morning. They took a report, but clearly didn't care. No forced entry, nothing stolen, no one hurt. The locksmith was more helpful. He said my lock model can have codes added remotely through the hub, but whoever did it would need network access. I pulled up my Wi-Fi connected devices and I don't recognize half of them. I'm in over my head. Someone please tell me what to do next. There's something about the way she describes that night. Lying in bed behind a barricaded door, knowing the lock and the camera, the two things she bought specifically for safety, were both compromised before she even knew to check. And the locksmith's detail about needing network access, that reframes this entire thing. This isn't someone picking a lock in the middle of the night. This is someone who's embedded inside her digital infrastructure. They can see what her cameras see, control what her smart devices do, and wipe any evidence that they were ever standing in her living room. OP ends this post begging Reddit for help figuring out her next move. And people showed up fast. The comment section went into overdrive on this one. Practical advice, genuine fear, and a few responses that made OP's situation feel even more dangerous than she already thought. The fact that the timestamps are exactly 3:14 every single time is what gets me. That's not random. That's a routine. This person has a schedule for watching you sleep. I physically got chills reading this. The previous owner is dead and their code is active. Either someone re-added it or your property manager lied about removing it. Either way, you need to change every single code and password tonight. Then came the comment that shifted everything. I work in home automation and I need to be blunt. If someone can unlock your door remotely, they almost certainly have access to your cameras too. That's why your Ring clips are gone. Assume they can see everything you see. This is exactly what the police tech guy told me yesterday. He said whoever did this had full admin access to my Ring account, not just the lock. They were deleting the clips manually each time. The thing that makes me sick is I changed my Ring password twice in the past month because I kept getting logged out, and I thought it was just a glitch. He was probably watching me change it in real time through my own camera. Shortly after that exchange, OP edited the original post. Every layer of security she had was already compromised, and she was only just beginning to find out how deep it went. A few days later, OP came back with an update post. I watched the hallway footage, and I'm typing this from a hotel lobby. I set up a motion-activated pinhole camera in my hallway, hid it inside a bookshelf, recording to a micro SD card. No cloud, no Wi-Fi, nothing anyone could wipe remotely. I forced myself to sleep normally for 2 nights. On the second night, the camera triggered. At 3:14 a.m., my front door opens. A man steps inside. Average build, faded green jacket, dark work pants. He doesn't look around. He walks straight to my bedroom like he's done it 100 times before. He stands at the foot of my bed, motionless, for 11 minutes. Then he turns around and leaves. I watched this footage on my phone sitting in my car the next morning, and I threw up in the parking lot. I drove straight to the police station. While I was filing the report, I remembered those sealed boxes in the basement. I went back with an officer, and we opened the one labeled with Gerald Maddox's name. Inside, a faded green jacket, dark work pants, the same exact clothes from the footage. The police brought in a forensic locksmith who examined my smart lock hub and confirmed the old access code had been re-added remotely from a device that is currently active on my home Wi-Fi network. The clothes detail is what changes everything. This person dressed in a dead man's outfit to stand over her in the dark. That's not obsession, that's theater. The comments on this one were unfiltered. The 11 minutes standing at the foot of your bed is going to live in my head rent-free forever. I am so sorry, OP. That is genuinely one of the most terrifying things I've ever read on here. What wrecked me is that it was 11 minutes and she didn't wake up once. Your body is supposed to sense when someone is that close. Imagine how many times he did this before she got the hidden camera. 2 weeks of logged entries minimum. That's 14 nights. Please tell me you're not still sleeping there. I don't care if it's your condo, you need to be somewhere else tonight. This is not a situation where you wait and gather more evidence. She wasn't sleeping there anymore, but the device on her network was still active. So here is where everything comes together. OP came back with one final update post. I watched the hallway footage and I'm typing this from a hotel lobby. Police brought in a network specialist and they finally traced the unknown device on my Wi-Fi. It was a Raspberry Pi, hardwired directly into my basement router, tucked behind a section of drywall. It had been there since before I closed on the condo. That one device maintained persistent access to my smart lock hub, my Ring account, and my entire local network. They traced the Pi's purchase and configuration back to Marcus Delvey, my property manager, the man who handled every step of my condo sale. Delvey was Gerald Maddox's nephew. He had retained a master access code to the lock, installed the Pi during the estate clearing, and had been entering my unit on a regular basis ever since I moved in. I left that same night. I did not pack a single thing. I drove to a hotel and paid cash. I am writing this from the lobby. When police arrested Delvey at his home, they found a journal in his car. Inside was a hand-drawn layout of my bedroom, sketched entirely from memory, with my sleeping position noted in detail. I am deleting this account tonight. I do not want any part of this attached to my name. One comment from the original thread really landed. The missing ring clips are the scariest part, honestly. Someone knows your system well enough to delete specific footage windows. That's not a glitch. That's someone with access to your account or your network. Every single layer of security she put in place, the smart lock, the camera, the network, was the exact thing being used against her. And the person who was supposed to help her move safely into her first home was the one who made sure he could always come back. That is the kind of violation that rewires how you think about a locked door. It is not the stranger who breaks in that haunts you, it is the one who already had the key. We are not done though. Next story hits just as hard, so if you are still here, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. I, 26-year-old female, helped my best friend move to a, quote, sustainable farm community for work. She stopped answering my calls after week 2. Posted 11 days ago on r/offmychest by Throwaway Grew Wrong. And if you think this is just a story about someone going off the grid, it is not. OP starts by saying she and Jenna have been inseparable since middle school, the kind of friendship where nothing stays secret for long. Jenna's had a rough year. Bad breakup, lost her apartment, been sleeping on a friend's couch, and grinding through a dead-end barista job that barely covers her phone bill. So when some acquaintance of an acquaintance tells her about this, quote, sustainable farm community in rural Oregon, room and board, decent pay, like-minded people, a real fresh start, she lights up. First time in months I had seen her excited about anything. I could not bring myself to kill that. I drove her out there myself. The drive should have been the first warning. Cell service dropped to nothing about 40 minutes in. Paved road turned to gravel, then to dirt. No signs, no markers, nothing. The property had a main house that looked normal enough, but everything around it was improvised structures and tarps and muddy paths between them. The people smiled too wide and talked in vague slogans about growing together and intentional living. I hugged Jenna goodbye with a pit in my stomach I could not explain. First week, she sent short texts. It was amazing, exactly what she needed. Second week, nothing. Calls went straight to voicemail. Text would not deliver. So I drove back out there without telling anyone. I found her in a canvas teepee with no running water. She was thinner. Behind a padlocked fence, there were rows and rows of cannabis. A man I had never seen walked up to me and said, "Jenna does not want visitors right now." She was standing 15 feet away, eyes on the ground. She did not look up. She did not say a single word. She left. She did not fight it, did not make a scene, just got in her car and drove. And now she is sitting at home replaying every single second of it, trying to understand how she drove her best friend to those people and just walked away. So after what happened at that property, seeing Jenna standing there silent, not even looking up, while some man she never mentioned decides who gets to talk to her, OP has to get in her car and drive home alone. And her brain will not stop. She does what anyone would do when something feels deeply wrong, but you have no proof and nobody is listening. She starts looking for answers. I pulled over 3 times on the drive back. Couldn't stop crying. Called Jenna's phone maybe 40 times, straight to voicemail. I kept replaying it. Her face, the way she wouldn't look up. That man's voice, calm, like he'd done this before. I got home and started Googling. The property, the community name, found almost nothing. A bare-bones website with stock photos and buzzwords about intentional living. No names, no reviews. I reached out to the acquaintance who told Jenna about it. Weirdly dismissive. Said Jenna was on her own journey and to respect her space. That scared me too. I called Jenna's mom. She hadn't heard from Jenna in 10 days. Didn't know the phone was dead. Then I called Marcus, Jenna's older brother, ex-military. He went quiet and said this sounds like a labor trafficking setup and we need law enforcement now. I couldn't sleep. Lay there replaying every red flag I ignored because Jenna seemed happy. I drove her there. I handed my best friend to those people. Marcus called the next morning, said he was driving down from Washington and we were going back, but this time with a deputy. Marcus changes the entire energy of this story, because up until this point, it's been one woman spiraling alone with no one taking her seriously. Now, someone with real training just named the thing she was too scared to say out loud. They're going back to that property, but this time it's not a friend knocking politely at the gate. And what they find when they get there, none of them were ready for it. The next few days were the longest of OP's life. She filed a welfare check with the county sheriff and waited for Marcus to drive down from Washington. And in the meantime, she spiraled. I called the sheriff's office and filed a welfare check request. The deputy I spoke to was polite, but when I gave him the address, he got quiet. Then he said they'd had complaints about that property before, but nothing actionable. I asked what kind of complaints, and he said he couldn't share that. That sentence broke something in me. Complaints before. Other people saw what I saw, and nothing happened. I haven't slept more than 2 hours a night since I went back there. I keep scrolling through old photos of Jenna on my phone. Jenna at the beach last summer, laughing so hard she's doubled over. Jenna at my birthday dinner, making a stupid face. She looked like herself in those photos. The person I saw standing in that field was not Jenna. I've been Googling cannabis grow operations, labor trafficking on illegal farms, how workers get isolated. Everything I read describes exactly what I saw. Confiscated phones, remote locations with no transport, housing included, that really means you can't leave. Jenna's mom has been calling the local police department every single day. They keep telling her there's nothing they can do without evidence of a crime. Her daughter is missing and nobody will help us. I'm going back this weekend. Marcus is driving down and we have a sheriff's deputy who agreed to escort us for the welfare check. I am not leaving that property without Jenna. I don't care what that man says. I don't care what I have to do. That last line hit the comment section hard. The part where she was standing 15 feet away and just staring at the ground made my stomach drop. That's not someone who chose anything. I'm so glad you went back. I worked on a legal cannabis farm in Southern Oregon for 2 summers. There are so many operations like this hidden in the hills. The housing included thing is always a red flag when it means you literally can't leave. That's exactly what I keep beating myself up about. The listing literally said, housing provided, remote location, must be comfortable off-grid. I read that and thought it sounded adventurous. Jenna was so excited. I drove her there and I saw the teepee and the dirt road with no cell service, and I still left her there because she told me she wanted this. I should have dragged her back to the car that first day. OP came back with an update post, and this one changes everything. We got Jenna out, but what we found there was worse than I thought. I got her out, but I don't think she's okay. We drove out Saturday morning, me, Marcus, and a county sheriff's deputy. Daniel was waiting at the gate like he knew we were coming. Same calm voice, same dismissive tone, told us Jenna was fine and we were wasting everyone's time. But you can't turn away a deputy. They let us onto the property. What we found? I still can't get it out of my head. 3 other young women living in identical canvas teepees, all thin, all quiet. Cannabis rows everywhere behind chain link fencing. No cars on the property besides Daniel's truck. 1 communal phone that Daniel kept in the main house. When we got to Jenna, she didn't run to us. She stood there and said, "I chose this life. I'm here voluntarily. I don't need rescuing." Her voice was flat. Her eyes were completely empty. Marcus knelt in front of her and said, "Jenna, Mom has been calling the police every single day. She hasn't slept. She thinks you're dead." Jenna's face just cracked. She started sobbing like something broke open inside her. While the deputy talked to Daniel, one of the other women walked up to me and whispered, "Nobody leaves unless Daniel drives them out, and Daniel never drives anyone out." That's when it hit me. This was never a commune, never a job. It was a trap designed for women who wouldn't be immediately missed. The response to this update was immediate. This is textbook isolation and labor trafficking. Please contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline if you haven't already. They deal with exactly this kind of rural operation. The rehearsed phrases part in the update is genuinely chilling. That's conditioning. Jenna is going to need real professional help to process what happened to her. Seconding this hard. My sister got pulled into something similar, not a farm, a wellness retreat that turned into unpaid labor. It took her almost a year of therapy before she could even admit out loud that she hadn't stayed voluntarily. The brain protects itself by rewriting the story as a choice. Jenna's going to need patience and zero judgment. OP closes the update with everything that came after, and none of it lands softly. Jenna left with us that day. She didn't argue, didn't say goodbye to anyone on the property. She just got in the car and went silent. The deputy called for additional units before we even left the road. A full investigation opened into Daniel and that land. I found out weeks later that one of the 3 remaining women had been reported missing in another state for 7 months. 7 months. Someone's daughter just gone, and nobody found her until a welfare check for a different woman led cops to the door. Jenna is home now, living with her mom, but she barely speaks. She flinches when anyone mentions work or travel. She sleeps with the lights on. I visited her last week and she just stared out the window, the same blank stare she had on that property. Like part of her is still there. I don't know how to stop blaming myself. I drove her to that place. I left her there. I saw every single red flag and chose hope over my own instinct. I'm posting this because I want people to know these places exist, and they don't look like what you think trafficking looks like. They look like a fresh start. They look like exactly what a desperate person needs to hear, and that is what makes them work. That last line sat with people. Daniel never agrees to drive. 6 words and I felt physically sick. That's a prison without walls. I was in a situation like this for 4 months when I was 23. It was not your fault. You came back for her. Most people don't. Jenna will come back to herself. It takes time and a lot of therapy, but she will. Please don't carry this alone. Please look into victim advocacy organizations in your area. NHTRC has a hotline and can connect both you and Jenna with resources specifically for survivors of labor trafficking. You did the right thing. And that is the thing about this story that stays with me. It is not Daniel. There will always be a Daniel. It is how easy it was. A vague job listing, a property with no address, a phone with no signal, and suddenly someone's entire life just stops, and nobody notices for 7 months. Exploitation does not announce itself. It hides behind the exact language people are most desperate to believe: freedom, community, a fresh start. And that is the last story for today.